This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. It's been quite a week in the presidential race. Super Tuesday gave a big win to former Vice President Joe Biden, and the field narrowed dramatically, with the latest departure coming just today of Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. To take us through the big week in politics, we welcome now our panel of Jennifer Nassour. She is founder of Conservative Women for a Better Future and also former chairwoman of the Massachusetts Republican Party. She comes to us today from Boston. And Mark Paustenbach. He is senior vice president in the public affairs firm of ROKK Solutions. Mark joins us today from Washington. So, Mark, let me start with you as a practical matter. Elizabeth Warren's out now. It's a two-person race. What are the paths for Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden?
Well, I think, first of all, what's important to understand, as you alluded to earlier, is that Joe Biden's wins on Super Tuesday were enormous. We've not seen anything like that in a number of years. You saw double-digit wins across the board. You saw increased turnout. You saw, for example, Virginia, record turnout, 60 to 70%. Up those 60 or 70% numbers, excuse me. You saw Joe Biden win by 30%. So that's something that people didn't expect, but you're seeing the party and voters consolidate around Joe Biden. And I think, you know, going into the next round of primary states, March 10th and March 17th, he's in a pretty good position with delegates.
So Jennifer, how does it look from the other side of the aisle? Because after Iowa and even New Hampshire, it wasn't clear there would be that much enthusiasm, that much voter turnout. Particularly New Hampshire, Iowa was disappointing. Does it look a little bit more troubling for the Republicans right now? Because there seems to be quite a bit of enthusiasm and getting a lot of voters out now on the Democratic side.
Well, I mean, I think that the Democrats are doing a great job of being able to excite voters. But here's the issue on the Republican side, is that there is no primary. So there's no reason for the voters to come out and turn out on that side. In Massachusetts, 56% of our electorate are actually unenrolled voters. So that means that on primary day, they get to choose to vote in the Republican or the Democratic primary. And so many people I know ended up voting in the Democratic primary because they felt the stakes were so high. I don't think that necessarily translates to Election Day.
Well, Mark, as we look now at this two-person race, really, between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, has Bernie Sanders just demonstrated any ability to bring out more voters that wouldn't be voting otherwise? I mean, he really likes to appeal to the young base, no question about it, but it's not clear he's getting more young people voting this time than, for example, 4 years ago.
Yeah, you know, I think that's one of the things, it's an important thing to think about is, you know, Senator Sanders has talked a lot about getting out the vote, as you said, about increasing the number of young people, but so far we really haven't seen that. You know, in states, as I said earlier, where you've seen an increase in turnout, it's largely gone to Joe Biden. And I think that, you know, is happening across the board. You're also seeing Joe Biden be able to create a diverse coalition. You had him winning more than 60% of African-American voters. You're seeing a lot of support from suburban women who helped propel the blue wave in 2018 for Democrats. So I really think that, you know, that's one of the things he's going to have to do moving forward, and Joe Biden's already shown that he can do that.
Jennifer, I wonder what you think about the general lay of the land, because coronavirus, at least at the moment, and it looks like it will keep going at least for, you know, 2-3 months at least, has really changed some of the political dynamic here. The voters may be looking for something a little bit different. President Trump was very strong in the economy, on tax cuts, on growing the economy. Now people are worried about their physical safety, and the economy itself may really waver a bit. Does that make it a more difficult path for Donald Trump come November?
No, I don't actually think so, because in politics, 6 months is an eternity. And so what we can see from here, Corona is not going to last past the summer, right? I mean, just like the flu ends, this will end at some point. There'll be vaccines. The nicer weather will break this up. But as long as the economy stays strong, the president remains in a very good position.
Yeah, I wonder if you agree with that, Mark, because I did talk with Larry Summers, actually, just a couple of days ago, and he said, actually, if you look at the numbers, what happens in the second quarter, and particularly people's disposable income, really influences their voting decisions come November. There's a bit of a lag.
You know, I think one of the things to really think about, too, is the message that, you know, the vice president is employing in the primary here. He's talking about growing in the economy, certainly, but also making sure that it's helping those in the middle class, that you're seeing wages increase, that, looking also at some of the actions that he and President Obama took in order to steer the economy in the right direction following the economic crisis. I think that's going to continue to be an issue, and I think that, putting forth plans, as the vice president has, and other candidates have as well on the Democratic side, is going to be particularly important.
Jennifer, I wonder how you think health care and the issues of health care coverage will play come November. And is the Supreme Court making it a bit more complicated? They've actually taken the case now where the administration is arguing against Obamacare, and they're not going to decide it before the election, but the arguments will happen, it looks like, in October. Does that make it a little more tricky from a political point of view?
I don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, Americans are smart enough to know if they can put a roof over their family's head, they can put food on the table, and they have a job that they can go to every day, that is the most important election factor. And I don't think that anyone is looking at anything else. You see that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren primarily made such a big deal over health care. And where is Elizabeth Warren today? She's no longer in this race. Bernie Sanders is only appealing to young voters. And we know statistically, young voters have not come out to vote in elections, and that it's mostly older voters and it's suburban white women. And if you're not going to get them and you're not appealing to them, it doesn't, all these other issues won't even make a difference.
Well, Mark, I wonder what your response is to that, because as Jennifer suggests, and we certainly hope that by the summer or so, maybe coronavirus will not be that big an issue, and we'll go back to the question, am I better off? Do I have a job? Do I make more money? Doesn't President Trump still have the upper hand on that if you look at the numbers overall for the country?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. I do think, as I said before, the key will be understanding how to articulate that message, how to put forth policies that are going to continue economic growth. I think at the end of the day, there are a number of different things that they're going to be looking at. You mentioned health care as well. Donald Trump and the Republican Party don't really have an alternative that they laid out. They want to go after the Affordable Care Act, but they're not offering an alternative in terms of policy, but they're also not articulating very well why health care is so important, why it's a big issue, and they have not really addressed that. And until they do, I think that's going to be a particularly big liability.
So, Jennifer, I wonder, from your point of view, if I can ask you to speak for the Republicans for a moment, if you had your druthers, if you had your choice, come November, what issue would you like this election decided on?
Well, I think at the end of the day, this is going to be between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And so the issue is going to be, who do you trust more with what is going on in your home? What's going on with your family? What job do you have? Who do you feel secure with when it comes to the economy? Because if the economy collapses and everything else goes with it, and so people then feel unstable. And so at the end of the day, I think the economy is the #1 issue.
Okay, many thanks to Jennifer Nassour. She's founder of Conservative Women for a Better Future, and Mark Paustenbach with ROKK Solutions. Great to have you both with us.